Because the court system, we have court in Berea 1 day a week on Fridays. And it's so bogged down with drug cases and traffic violations that cases of harassment just get pushed aside. Our case went through the system in a year and never was settled. It just got dismissed because it had a year to get through the system. So with that being said, I would have to agree with, I think Vincent and others that said we would have to read it first to see what all of what it says, to see who it protects, because there's so much protection needed for not just the LGBTQ community, but so many other communities need, so many other members of our society need assistance. There have been 2 recent federal cases, one with employment and one with housing, that have ruled that gender discrimination fits under sex discrimination. So,
Would you like to rebuttal? Okay, 30 seconds.
I'd just like to say that that's the point of having a fairness ordinance. The language for those other groups you mentioned are already covered with protection, whereas this particular community is not. And I think that is essentially the point.
And now we will be, thank you. And now I'd like to ask that Chapman Evans from the Speech and Debate team please come and join us.
Well, hello, my name is Chapman Evans, and I am here representing the Speech and Debate team at Berea College, and I think that in itself explains what it is. So, as we all know, elected officials are held to higher standards of conduct than their non-elected counterparts. And if you are elected to office, what actions will you take to ensure that you do indeed live up to these standards?
Can I ask a clarifying question? Do you mean ordinances or?
I mean in terms of civility, the way people act. Someone who's in an elected office, we typically see them as someone who needs to act appropriately, and throughout the course of, not saying this one's particularly, but in general, some elections, that civility seems to be lost sometimes. So if you are elected to office, what actions will you take to uphold that, to make sure you act the part?
Okay, so thank you for the question. I would point to the last 4 years. That's the best thing that I can do. I will continue to try to be a voice of reason, to be a calming voice, to continue to work with all of the council members, no matter where they stand on issues. Listen, we're not all going to agree, and I hope we don't all agree, because the fact is that some of the best meetings that I have ever been a part of have been ones that were argumentative, that were back and forth, that talked about issues. The worst thing that we can do is all go in and just cast a vote. But I think once it's over with, you have to be civil with one another. You have to work together, and always remember that that's the case. I would think that if you talk to anybody in the community, I would hope that on both sides that they would tell you that I'm always willing to listen, that I'm always willing to talk to them, and that I find everybody's opinion important, and that I have never been dismissive, and I will continue to do those things because it is important that we all work together and, as you say, conduct ourselves to a higher level, because we are expected to be representatives of our city.
Not much more I can say about that. Just simply act like an adult. If you're elected to that, you have to act the part. If you're going to act like a child, then you don't need to be there. That's the way it is in Washington. It's the way it is in Frankfurt as well. So be friends, like Steve said. Listen to each other. Listen to the citizens. Just act right.
I hope we all are obliged to be proactive and work positively for the development and the future of Berea. Use our common sense. I also realize that common sense is not the same for all people, and that's why we need to communicate, and we want to make sure that the community is being heard, and the council members need to be available for the community.
I've worked in the public most of my adult life. 18 years at the public library. I have to maintain a certain behavior. I can't post insane things to public media and expect to keep my job. And, you know, we all, upon being elected officials or seeking to be elected officials, we should all understand that our behavior is now representing our community at large. So how we carry ourselves matters.
So when you bring up civility, too often I think that turns into, let's not talk about the hard stuff. And what I would say, the type of leadership I would like to see is inviting dissent. What you will see on the current council is that there is hardly any dissent, and that's part of the problem, and why we don't really have deep discussions about a lot of the important issues. In terms of civility, I committed way back when I first launched to have a positive campaign, and I've tried to maintain that, and I think that's a reflection of who I would be on the council. I can point to other members like John Payne. I've been waiting for the opportunity to give him a shout out. John here made a couple bumper stickers for me and some buttons because he knew that I was on a shoestring budget, and that's the kind of relationship we should have with each other on council as well. But like I said, dissent will always be welcomed, and I think it's important for healthy governing.
Thank you.
Well, I think if we go back to the point where it's how you were raised. If you were raised right, then you don't have that problem. Everybody should work together. There should be an ethical thing about it. I mean, it's how you carry yourself. If you done something when you was a child at home, when you got home, you got disciplined for it. And I think that's the way that it should be done now.
Would it be possible to have him repeat that? Yes, please.
Hello again.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. Elected officials are held to higher standards of conduct than their non-elected counterparts, as we all know. So if you are elected to city council, what actions will you take to ensure that you live up to these standards?
I think I have a pretty good moral compass to follow and to be nice to people. I listen to people on whether I disagree with them or not. I listen to what everybody has to say to me. Sometimes offer opposite opinions. Maybe they don't agree with me. We may need to revisit the code of ethics in the city and possibly sensitivity training, but I think all in all, I'm pretty easy to get along with.
Thank you so much for your answers. Does anyone have a rebuttal they'd like to share? If not, we'll be moving on to Jose Socaras, who will be speaking on behalf of Fighting for Equal Education.
Before he begins, just so we can go ahead and start rotating, Vincent, you will start.
Hello, my name is Jose. I am representing FEE, or Fighting for Equal Education. And my question is, would you be willing to vote in favor of passing the ordinance that would bar city employees like police officers from racially profiling Berea community members by asking about their immigration status? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Vincent.
I honestly thought that was a federal law that they couldn't racially profile. Yes, Berea police should not do that. Simple as that.
Yeah, and I'm on the same page, you know, there's no reason, from my point of view, to profile anyone. We are here, we are together, and we have to build our community and society on equality.
Our city employees, our emergency responders, absolutely should be looking at the relevant things to what they're serving. with law enforcement, they're looking for crimes that are committed or not committed, not the trying to establish whether someone is here legally or illegally. That should be irrelevant through the course of their actions.
So yeah, the city council does have the power to basically tell police officers to stand down in the event that, say, ICE wanted to come through and use our resources as a city to execute those raids. And I would be in full support of passing an ordinance against using our resources to support anything of that nature. Because I think that's the background of the question you're asking. Yeah, so yes, I would definitely be in favor of that.
Well, that's kind of a hard question to answer because it depends on where you were at and what the situation is, whether you got profiled or not. If you put yourself in that position, in that situation, then you're gonna have that problem.
I think if you're just walking down the street, then no, they shouldn't be stopping you and asking you to give ID or where you're from or asking any questions like that. The rest of it I don't have to agree with Darnell on. If there's a crime committed in the area and maybe they describe somebody that looks like you or wearing something similar to you and they stop you and want to talk to you and they ask you for that, then I think they have a right to ask you.
So I don't think that our police have ever participated in any sort of ICE raids or anything of that nature. I cannot imagine that they ever would. I would not want them to start to go into that because that's not what they need to be doing. Emily says that you can. I don't know that we can actually make an ordinance that says that our police officers that they cannot participate in a federal, I know I've experienced a lot of municipal law, but that's kind of a niche, to be honest. And I don't want to see our police officers doing that, because again, we have enough problems that we need to be dealing with. But I would really like to look into that to see if that's even legal for us to override a federal law and a federal law enforcement agency. But if, in terms of them participating in raids, I do not want to see them doing that.
Do you have a rebuttal?
I actually did already look it up and did the research with the city administration, and the council would have the power to create such an ordinance, and it would be effective.
Thank you. Any additional rebuttals? No? Okay, and yes, we will be beginning with Mr. Fredrickson. We will now be passing it on to Jordan Tucker on behalf of the Student Government Association.
Hi, I'm Jordan Tucker. I'm here with the Student Government Association, like she said. My question is, Berea College students have the legal right to vote in the town of Berea. What is your opinion on this, and what are your thoughts on the roles of students in the larger community?
Well, I think that not even should the Berea College students have the right to vote if they live in Berea and they're registered here with an address. I think they're obliged to. And I think it's very important to push the student body to go out and vote. I don't know who are Democrats and who are Republicans and how they are registered or independent. It really doesn't matter to me. It might be 40, 20 or something like that. But what I think matters is that young people become more involved in our community and our society, because if you don't, other people will make decisions for you.
I don't think it's a matter of opinion. And we've actually had some small groups in the past who have tried to intimidate the college students. College students have every right, while you're attending Berea College, to have your voter registration changed to Berea. You are, in fact, Bereans for as long as you are here. And to many of my Berea College graduates, they remain Bereans in spirit long after they've gone. If you choose to vote where your family lives, that is your choice. But if you choose to vote in Berea, we all support you and the law supports you.
Kind of touched on this in my opening statement, and I had more that I brought with me, but I didn't feel I had time. So 5 reasons why students should vote in local elections. These are just 5 examples. It's not all inclusive. But housing. At some point during your stay here, either you or someone you know is going to live off campus. They're going to have a landlord. They're going to be using city utilities. The council has the power to hold housing authorities accountable to the residents in the city if you have issues. We'll be the ones dealing with those issues if you ever do have them. The utilities contracts that have just been wildly contested are part of that too, of keeping your costs down. 2, fairness, right? So we have students that are harassed on the regular, and it's important that we have protections for those students. 3, city-college partnerships. So if I take off my proud alum hat, and I said this at the last, what was it, conference, whatever, forum. As a city council member, I would see Berea College as a huge resource, an untapped resource, because especially in terms of social issues, that we haven't quite partnered a whole lot outside of Grow Appalachia type partnerships, but like homelessness, the opioid crisis, we could definitely do more together. Infrastructure, the streaming internet that you all are always complaining about, we have a part to play in that too. And then finally, 5, what I said earlier, your vote matters because of succession planning. Who you vote in today may be the leaders for tomorrow.
I think you should have the right to vote, but I also think if you're not a permanent resident, when I say permanent, I don't mean 30 days, a year. What happens if you decide not to go to school here anymore? I think you should be a permanent resident of Berea if you have the right to vote. If you have the right to vote in another county, another state, another country, you should be a Berean if you're going to vote.
I think students should be allowed to vote, and not only allowed to vote, but they should be encouraged to take part. They should vote, have the vans take you up to the poll. I think Folk Center is most students' voting place. You should definitely be encouraged to vote. This is your country too.
I think this has been said, but there's really no opinion on it, right? You can vote, you should vote. If you choose to vote in Berea and do that, you should vote here. If you choose to vote where you're from and you're involved in that community and you want to continue to kind of vote with them, you should do that. But the fact is, you should vote. You should participate. You should be here. You should be getting your friends to come here. You should go back and talk to your friends about what you hear tonight or what you see, because the biggest problem that we have is that young people our age, don't participate in the political process. They don't run for things. They don't even really listen to things. They don't show up to vote. And if we don't do that, then in years in the future, we're still not going to vote. And so it needs to become a habit. It needs to be part of your annual thing. And the second part of that question, I think we've all kind of missed, with what's the bigger part of college students within the city. We need to do a better job as a city and as a community embracing the students, because you are here and you need to be a part of everything that we do and the planning that we do, because you're a huge driving factor for the future, because so many students are going to stay in Berea and they're going to be part of Berea. And if we don't do our part as a city to sort of embrace all of our students, then we can't really expect them to embrace the city as they move forward. So we need to make sure that we do as much as we can to continue to reach out to students, and we don't do a very good job of that.
Yes.
Yes, college students in Berea should be able to vote. You may only be here for 4 years, but most college students agree with each other, so you're not only voting for yourself, you're voting for those that come after you. So yes, you should be allowed to vote if you're a college student in Berea.
I have a little rebuttal. I don't know if there's a difference between how you are a permanent resident and a permanent resident. I mean, if you move here, put your address here, you are a permanent resident. It could be a professor who moved to town and leave again after half a year. He has the right to vote. It could be an accountant who worked for a company here in town, find a better job in North Carolina, move away, but he has the right to vote here as long as he's registered here. And many of the students are here for 3 or 4 years. From my point of view, you're really permanent.
Do we have any additional rebuttals? We do not. I'm gonna go ahead, I think we're having mic troubles. Okay, no, so we will be moving on from the student submitted portion of the questions. And we'll now have questions submitted on behalf of BPAC, which is again the Voter Empowerment Political Awareness Coalition on campus. The first question that we'll have, and it will go to Ms. Ladouceur, will be, how do you plan to involve residents in the decision-making process in our town?
This is a big part of my platform because I think we need approachable leaders and leaders that are constantly putting their feet on the ground, not just during campaign time, and garnering the opinions of our community. This can be held through town halls, but this could also just be doing some of the things I like to do already, which is like volunteering in the schools. You get to know teachers, you hear about what they're going through with the pension stuff. You find out so much by just being engaged in the community and being an approachable leader where people feel comfortable that they can come to you with their concerns. Yeah.
What was the question again?
The question was, how do you plan to involve residents in the decision-making process in our town?
Well, I think we need to make it a little bit easier for the people to get out and figure out what's going on. Maybe some one-on-one, have more meetings that would involve the people a little bit more. But it's going to take the Elite Eight to make that better as far as getting out and talking to the people and finding out what some of the problems are and see if we can fix them.
I would encourage people to come to city meetings, whether it's the council meetings, the tourism commission, human rights commission. There's so many boards and commissions that have meetings. It would be nice to have them all videoed, so if you can't make it to a meeting, you can at least watch it. I would encourage them to all call, to email if they have a concern about something that's coming up at a council meeting. Also would engage them. I've been very active in the community over the last, well, ever since we've been here. I've been in civic groups. I hear people's complaints when we're having, meetings for those groups. I volunteered at the schools ever since my kids were in kindergarten, so that's like 15 years. And hear teachers' problems. I've started a support group in the community for people with family members who have disabilities. I hear the issues that face those people. People that come to those meetings. So that's just some of the ways that we can encourage people and having town halls and bringing people together to talk.
So I think the biggest thing is that you have to continue to do the best that we can with transparency, and we do an okay job of that as a city, I think. We always make sure that public meetings are put out there, and we need to do a better job of making sure that any meetings that we have that are public meetings that people want to come to are at a time when people can come to them. As somebody who, I work full-time and have 3 little kids, and so coming to a 3 o'clock meeting is not really feasible for me unless I'm going to be able to take vacation time. So, and I'm not the only person that falls in that boat. Students, for instance, it's very hard if we were going to have a 1 o'clock meeting, chances are you're going to have class. And so we need to do a better job of making sure that all of our meetings that are important to citizens to be at are at a time when citizens can be at. And so from a personal standpoint, I will continue to have a completely open door policy. If anybody ever wants to talk to me, they're welcome to call me. I'm always willing to talk to any citizen who has any issue of any kind. I will tell you, sometimes it's hard because sometimes people won't speak up. And so I encourage our citizens to do that and to make sure that they call our leaders, whoever they may be, and tell them what you think. Because just because we post it on social media doesn't mean that we see that. And so it's important to reach out and to make your ideas and views heard.
Yes, so the question is, how do you plan to